In my survival game, you're not only tasked with keeping yourself alive, but also your base. This means you have to repurpose normal farming tools into deadly weapons. I've already transformed a scarecrow into a killing machine, so now it's time to do the same thing, but with the sprinkler. But before we get to that, there's a few things I want to improve from last time. In the last video, I created a way to pick up items that you've placed, but there were a few problems with this. The first being that if you picked up something with an inventory, like a chest or a scarecrow, you lose every item it's holding. So I decided to take the Minecraft approach and have the chest drop every item on the ground. This actually wasn't too hard. In my pickup code, I just had to check to see if the item you're picking up has an inventory, and if it does, it will go through and drop everything. This is fun to see, and now you can just move a chest whenever you want without worry. Oh yeah, this will also work for the scarecrow. Okay, on to the new stuff. Right now the only defense is the scarecrow. This uses bullets to fire, but you aren't just going to drop onto an island and find bullets in the woods. You're going to have to build up to that. So we need to make some defenses for the early game. Now, I want all weapons to fit the theme of a child living on a farm and be theoretically buildable with the items you can find. So with that, I decided to make a pitching machine. What, kids like baseball? But you're not going to find baseballs on an island either. So instead, you rig it to shoot rocks. I started by making a mediocre pitching machine model and threw it into Unity. I set it up the same way that I did the scarecrow, but I ran into another problem. If you watched my last video, you'd know I hate my past self. Some of the code I made early on is just terrible. Last time it was the placement code, this time it's the inventory system. Every time I was adding a new item with an inventory, say a defense or a chest, I would have to add a new inventory object, which then had to be added to the code, which was just becoming a bigger and bigger mess. So I spent some time cleaning up that code, and now each new inventory runs off the same code, so adding new ones is easy and the code is much easier to edit. And now that I rewrote all the code, I can actually add the rock launcher. This rock launcher only lets you use one kind of ammo. You guessed it, rocks. But there was one detail I still had to figure out, and that was how to display how much ammo you have. With the scarecrow, I have his face flash a bullet symbol to show when it needs ammo. But the rock launcher doesn't have a screen. So instead, I made the back fill up with rocks based on how much ammo you have in it. This is honestly more useful than a screen. Let's keep this rock rolling by adding the most important defense. The sprinkler. I hear the comments now. How can a sprinkler be a defense? Well, my curious friend, everything that is attacking you will be a robot. And if my toaster has taught me anything, they do not like water. But before it attacks enemies, it first has to work as a regular sprinkler. I set up a script to detect whenever a plant needs watered within its range. If this happens, it turns on. Just pretend it's spinning and shooting out water. Now, a sprinkler can't just shoot water on its own. So like the scarecrow and rock launcher, I made it have to be within the range of the house to work. However, I didn't love how I implemented this last time. I had made it so placing an object outside the range just made it so it didn't work. I hope one day people who haven't seen my videos will play this game, and they probably wouldn't know that it needed to be placed near the home. So they might just get frustrated and not know why it isn't working. Just to make it easier to understand, I made it so you couldn't place them outside the range at all. Now this only affects things that require power, so fences and planters are still able to be placed anywhere. But the sprinkler is special. It needs more than power to water plants. It also needs the water. Luckily, I made the well in the last video. See, told you guys it would be useful. Now when you go to place a sprinkler, every water source's range will appear, and you'll need to place it within that too. I wanted to make it so, if you're lucky and spawn near water, you could place a sprinkler near that instead. This took a bit of thinking, since I'm just using one plane of water underneath the whole map. I do this so when you generate a world, it doesn't have to know where the water is. Instead, it just makes the terrain low enough to reveal the water. I ended up just putting a collider slightly higher than the water, so when you pull out the sprinkler, you can see where you're able to place it. I don't know how often you'll be that close, but I think it's a nice touch. Now all I had to do was update the detection code to also trigger when enemies walk through it. I had thought about making the sprinkler come out like Doc Ock's arm to shoot water, but I decided not to overcomplicate this one. Just a regular sprinkler that does splash damage. I also gave it the added effect of slowing enemies. I think that despite its low range, the fact that it waters plants for you and attacks enemies will be a major benefit. But while testing, I realized that the water will also hurt you. But I figured that would get really annoying, so I decided to make the water friendly to you. Don't ask how, I'm just putting gameplay over logic. Another thing I noticed while testing was that when you pick up an item, they magically get all their health back. Which makes sense, since I never put in a way to track health. But it needed to be fixed, or else people would abuse it. This took a bit of time, just because I had to dive through all my old code, and we all know how that looks. But now when you pick up an item whose health is not full, it will display a small health bar in the item slot, just like how the bucket tracks water. Then I just had to transfer that to the item when it's placed, and now people can't cheat it. But I'm getting really sick of looking at this garbage Karen robot. I think it's time to give him an upgrade, and maybe a few friends. What's that? I'm running out of time and have to start making this video? Well, okay. I guess that's a task for next time. If you want to see that as soon as it comes out, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.